This is Ace from space.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ace Frehley.
Guitarist Ace Frehley, one of the founding members of the rock group Kiss, has died. He was 74.
The clock read 2:14 a.m. on October 16, 2024, when the monitor flatlined. Ace Frehley, the spaceman who had soared through rock history with Kiss, had taken his final journey at age 74. But it wasn't his death that would shake the foundation of rock history. It was what Gene Simmons, the man who had spent decades as his rival, would reveal at his funeral.
I'm sad in retrospect, hindsight's 2020. I'm sad that I wasn't more hard on Ace and Peter. Once the bell rings and people go off work, they all run to drink. And I always found that so peculiar.
A secret tape, a confession, and words no one expected to hear. 3 days after Ace's passing, St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Morristown fell silent as Gene Simmons approached the lectern. The iconic bass player who had built Kiss into a merchandise empire looked different today. No makeup, no bravado, just a man carrying the weight of something unsaid for over 40 years. I never told him this, Gene began, his voice barely steady, because I didn't know how. The room froze. This wasn't the Gene Simmons the world knew. For months before his collapse at Morristown Studios, Ace had been pushing himself relentlessly. 8-hour recording sessions with only brief coffee breaks. "If I'm not sweating, I'm not working," he would say, clinging to habits formed in the early 1970s when Kiss was fighting for recognition. During a final test taken mid-October, he lost his balance near an amplifier. The fall caused a head injury that led to a hidden brain hemorrhage. Days later, doctors advised the family to prepare for ventilation support. By October 15th, his condition turned critical. When news broke of Ace's passing on October 17th, the rock world responded immediately. Paul Stanley wrote, "This loss is bigger than music. He was our soul." Peter Criss called him the electric heart of Kiss. But Gene Simmons, the man who had argued with Ace since their Casablanca Records days over merchandise rights, creative control, and band direction, remained conspicuously silent. No tweet, no statement, nothing, until now. As Gene stood before the mourners, something unexpected happened. A woman rose from her seat, someone few in the room recognized. She identified herself as someone who had shared Ace's life in Los Angeles after he first left Kiss. Their relationship had remained private, away from cameras and reporters. "There was just one piece of proof to our story," she said. "A personal recording Ace made separate from any album, not for sale, not for a label, but with instructions to play it when the time came." Gene nodded, then reached into his pocket. When Ace left the band, Gene continued, his voice trembling slightly, "I told everyone he couldn't keep up. That was a lie." Paul Stanley's expression shifted from grief to shock. "The truth is," Gene admitted, "I was jealous." A collective gasp rippled through the church. He had something we could never copy, raw honesty. He didn't play for money. He played like every note could save his life. Gene revealed a small cassette. "Ace gave this to me the day he left in 1981. I never played it until last night." He turned the cassette over in his hands, seemingly deciding whether to share this final piece of Ace with the world. It's not a hit, no fancy technique, just a slow acoustic ballad, simple moves, no drums, no backing vocals. And at the end, a message whispered directly into the mic for the one person who understood him outside of music. Gene placed the cassette into a small player beside the casket. Static crackled through the speakers before giving way to soft acoustic guitar. Then Ace's voice, almost whispering, "This is for the only person who understands me outside of music." The melody that followed wasn't a Kiss anthem. It wasn't designed for stadiums. It was intimate, vulnerable, a side of Ace Frehley the public never knew. When the track ended, Gene wiped his eyes. "I spent years building a brand," he said. "Ace built a soul." He stepped away from the microphone and sat down, leaving the church in complete silence. For 46 seconds, no one moved. No applause, no whispers. Only the church bell outside, striking once to mark the passing of a rock legend. In the front pew sat Paul Stanley, Peter Criss, and Ace's daughter Monique. Beside the casket lay his silver spaceman pick and the Les Paul guitar that had become an extension of himself. The memorial programs, simple white cards with the dates 1951-2024, seemed inadequate to capture the enormity of his influence. How could paper contain the electricity he had brought to millions? The day before his fatal accident, everything had seemed normal. A quick coffee, then back to the recording studio. The engineer Tex had remarked that Ace could work for 8 hours straight with only a couple of short breaks. He wasn't adding layers to his sound. Instead, he was stripping things away, creating space for the music to breathe. That stubborn need for authenticity, for honesty in every note, had always defined him. And perhaps it came with a price: exhaustion, a moment of imbalance, and a fall that even rock and roll couldn't protect him from. After the ceremony, fans gathered outside the church. They brought candles, vinyl records, posters from the Live 2 tour in 1977 and the Love Gun tour. Reporters pressed for more details, but Gene only whispered, "This tape was his real goodbye. I just helped people hear it." Monique Frehley later confirmed the existence of a cassette titled Goldie's Star, a personal recording from 1981. Ace had left instructions for it to be played only once, when his story was over. 2 days later, a memorial concert was held at Gibson Garage in Nashville. Musicians performed without stage makeup, stripping away the personas to honor the man behind the character. Tributes arrived from across the music world. Tom Morello observed, "No need for complicated techniques, just a sound at the right time in the right place. Like Ace is enough to make people remember for a lifetime." Dave Grohl revealed that seeing Ace perform with smoke billowing from his guitar was one of his earliest musical memories, the moment that inspired him to pursue his own career. Even Lady Gaga spoke of the spaceman as an icon who taught artists not to hide behind trends but to hold the stage with authentic character. Engineers and producers noted his preference for simplicity, capturing a room feel rather than layering tracks. How to make a melody stick without piling on layers is now taught in recording courses. Part of Ace Frehley's legacy. The common thread through every tribute: he didn't follow rules, he made them. Following the funeral, Ace's family began cataloging his archive, handwritten notes, cassettes, studio equipment, and unreleased tracks known only to his inner circle. The rights to his creative legacy passed to Monique, who will curate a private trust preserving his recordings in the style of early Frehley's Comet. Simple, but instantly recognizable. There are no promises of major releases. Perhaps that's fitting. Sometimes knowing the music exists, waiting for its moment, is enough. As for Gene Simmons, the man who once breathed fire on stage looks smaller that day, more human than ever before, and in his vulnerability came his most honest assessment. Kiss without Ace is just makeup. Was Gene's confession an apology or respect spoken too late? The answer may be as complex as the relationship between these two rock icons, a relationship now forever marked by a cassette tape and words that waited 40 years to be spoken. The spaceman has gone, but the sound he created, authentic, uncompromising, uniquely his own, continues to reverberate through rock history, and perhaps that's the greatest legacy any musician could hope for. If this story moved you, Remember to like this video in Ace's honor and share it with those you once listened to Alive 2 with. Drop a comment about what hit you hardest: Gene's confession, the secret tape, or the realization that sometimes the simplest sound at the right moment can change everything. Add your city and the first Ace track you ever heard. Let's build a memory map together, celebrating a man who taught us that being yourself when pretending would be easier is the truest form of rock and roll rebellion.